What if your life depended on fixing a spaceship from 200,000 miles away? This isn't a movie. It's the real story of Apollo 13. In April 1970, NASA launched Apollo 13, aiming for a third successful moon landing. The astronauts on board were Jim Lovell, Haise, and Jack Swigert. These men were trained to face challenges in space, but they never expected the terrifying ordeal they'd soon encounter. At first, everything went smoothly. The crew was on their way to the moon, conducting checks and routines. But then, 56 hours into the journey, a small action would change everything. They performed a routine stir of the oxygen tanks, and suddenly, boom! A massive explosion shook the spacecraft. Inside the tiny module, they heard a deafening bang, followed by warning lights flashing all around them. In that moment, they knew something had gone terribly wrong. Astronaut Jack Swigert immediately radioed back to Earth with the now famous words, "Houston, we have a problem." Those words were an understatement. The explosion had destroyed one oxygen tank and damaged the other. For a spacecraft, oxygen isn't just for breathing, it's essential for generating power. With their oxygen supply rapidly depleting, they realized they were in a life or death situation. The mission shifted instantly from exploration to survival. Imagine being in the freezing cold of space, oxygen running out, and no clear way home. The crew members were isolated, floating hundreds of thousands of miles from Earth, with only their training and NASA's support to rely on. Back on Earth, NASA's engineers were thrown into a crisis. How could they help the crew survive, and more importantly, bring them home safely? There were no backup systems, no plan B. They had to come up with solutions from scratch, using only the limited materials available on the spacecraft. The lack of power created another problem: carbon dioxide buildup. Without ventilation systems running, the carbon dioxide they exhaled started filling the cabin, reaching dangerous levels. The astronauts were facing a new threat. They could be poisoned by their own breath. Back on Earth, NASA's engineers were racing against time to create a makeshift carbon dioxide filter. They had to think fast and get creative. Their solution? A filter built with duct tape, plastic bags, and the limited supplies on board. They sketched the design and sent instructions to the astronauts. Jim Lovell, Haise, and Jack Swigert carefully followed the directions, putting together this homemade filter while floating in zero gravity. It was a true feat of engineering, done under extreme stress and conditions. With this filter, they managed to bring the carbon dioxide levels down to a safer range, buying themselves more time. Before we dive deeper, if you're fascinated by stories of resilience, don't forget to subscribe for more incredible tales. Over the next few days, the crew rationed their supplies, dealt with the intense cold, and faced extreme fatigue. But as they got closer to Earth, they encountered yet another problem: re-entry. To safely re-enter Earth's atmosphere, they had to hit a very precise angle. Too steep, and they would burn up in the atmosphere. Too shallow, and they would skip off, drifting into space forever. Normally, this would be calculated by the onboard computer, but with systems shut down, they had to do it manually. They used the stars as their guide, making manual adjustments with only their instincts and training to rely on. Imagine navigating through space with nothing but a window and a rough angle in mind. Their lives depended on these calculations. Finally, on April 17, 1970, the moment came. Apollo 13 re-entered Earth's atmosphere. For several tense minutes, Mission Control waited in silence. Communication with the spacecraft was cut off, and everyone held their breath. All right, quick challenge. Comment survivor below if you think you'd make it through Apollo 13's ordeal. Now back to the action. Then, a signal came through. Apollo 13 had survived re-entry, and the capsule safely splashed down in the Pacific Ocean. Against all odds, Jim Lovell, Fred Haise, and Jack Swigert had made it home. This wasn't just a rescue mission, it was one of NASA's proudest moments. Apollo 13 became a symbol of human resilience, teamwork, and ingenuity. It showed the world what we can accomplish when faced with impossible odds. Apollo 13's story continues to inspire to this day. It's a reminder of how, even in our darkest moments, innovation and courage can bring us back from the brink. Could you have survived Apollo 13's mission? Let us know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this incredible true story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life tales of survival.